From the opera Der Freischütz. My character, Agatha, has had a terrible dream that her fiancé shot her. It has caused some distress, and so she seeks God for guidance and for peace. At the end of the scene, her sister, Annie, comes in to give her a sense of hope and lets her know that everything is okay.
Hi there, Francesca Baldarelli here. I am a intro to printmaking adjunct professor at YSU. I received my BFA from YSU in printmaking and painting in 2012, and I have received my Master of Fine Arts from the University of Alabama in 2018. I didn't always really love printmaking. In fact, I didn't really like it at all in the beginning. But when I realized I could make monotypes and monoprints and use those techniques and prints to create other objects, I was hooked. In this piece here, I used photo transfers, screen printing, and tape to create this composition. And as a child, I watched my family collect different materials and items and repurpose them and give them new life. And I realized through that process that I could transform objects and materials and make them into something more. So repurposing naturally has led me to form rituals and habits pertaining to collecting. I tend to collect things I see potential in, as well as objects that make me giggle and question why on earth someone had this in the first place. I love creating magical moments of memory and discovery through my work. Objects, much like people, have a history. They are formed, and as time passes, they evolve. A crack here, a bend there, slowly becoming different. And that's what I wanted for my work. I wanted to use these different things that I've collected, like old maps. I used to collect different kinds of tape, just pretty much anything that struck my interest. But it wasn't enough for me to make these prints and then put them behind glass and hang them on the wall. I wanted these the interaction that I had with them, like the whole process of collecting these different things to print with, these different items, to be more part of the viewer's experience. So evolving forward with these, I started layering them more and collecting more materials, especially everyday materials or mundane, boring things, and give them new life, such as this old map. There's a orange net, that your oranges come in, that I would print with, and of course screen printing and relief printing. There's some carving going on, but this was kind of what I wanted to do, and as I said, I wanted them to evolve, and that's what happened. With this piece, I took a sheet, an old sheet that I was going to get rid of, and I deconstructed it, and then I reconstructed it. And this came from my time in Alabama, and that's why I named it How Alabama of You, because I learned a lot about textiles there and different ways of making, and I taught myself how to sew. And it was just very reminiscent of the culture and the homey feel that I felt there, even though I was so far away from home. And I think that that's really important, and it means a lot to me in my work to give the viewer a sense of home or something that's familiar to them. Because this piece, what is it? Is it a quilt? Is it a curtain? Is it a blanket? What is it? I don't really even know what it is, but I know that it feels like home to me, and you can interact with this piece, say like a blanket, like you can touch it, you can feel it. It's very tactile, and I think it's important for the viewer when they're interacting with the work to have a sense of familiarness or have a sense of something that they can connect with. And I think this piece does that because you can walk around it. When you move, it moves. It's just one of those things. And here I used leftover fabric from that previous piece. In this piece, I went around to different gas stations in the area and I collected the milk crates, and I took those milk crates and again, I deconstructed them, and then I took the fabric and pushed it through the crisscross of the grate. So I liked this tension created between the hard, cold plastic and this fluffy, soft material. And again, this piece moves. When you move around it. It's more interactive in a way, and it also interacts more with the space, the shadow, the lighting, and the ground. And I just think it's very important that the viewer can see these kind of items that are familiar to them, and it gives them more access into the work.
Dear friend, I am so sorry about last night. It was a nightmare in every way, but together you and I will laugh at last night someday. Ice cream, he brought me ice cream, vanilla ice cream, imagine that, ice cream, and for the first time we were together without a spat, friendly, he was so friendly, that isn't like him, I'm simply stunned, will wonders never cease, will wonders never cease, it's been a most peculiar day, will wonders never cease, will wonders never cease. Oh, where was I? I am so sorry about last night, it was a nightmare in every way, but together you and I will have a last night someday. I sat there waiting in that cafe, and never guessing that you were fat. Oh! That you were near. You were outside looking bald. Oh my! I am so sorry about last night. Last night, I was so nasty. Well, he deserved it, but even so, that George is not like this George. This is a new George that I don't know. Somehow, it all reminds me of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. For right before my eyes, a man that I despise has turned into a man I like. It's almost like a dream, and strange as it may seem, he came to offer me ice cream.
My work is generated from notions of childhood, memory, pop culture, consumerism, and Americana. Each work facilitates relationships between memory and object, how memory blurs over time, and how we continually reconstruct and add new segments to each story told. Our memories become enhanced, take on new meaning, and become more dramatic and monumental. My work is an attempt to capture these moments as each one increasingly becomes altered through life experiences. This piece is entitled A Gathering of Citrus Rats, Eskimo Pies to Revert, and is part of a print portfolio exchange and exhibition entitled Cul-de-sac. It is currently on display at the Columbus Printed Arts Center Gallery in Columbus, Ohio. We were all charged with creating work that deals with growing up in suburban neighborhoods. I grew up in a sleepy town, a retirement town, called Newport Richey, Florida, a suburb of Tampa. And I decided to make work about our backyard adventures and what brought people together within our neighborhood and all the community along the west coast of Florida. I wish to evoke a feeling of familiarity to the images portrayed. I purposely obscure the information presented. There may be an exaggeration of form or an awkward pairing of objects in a space, all to ultimately question the nature of memory and expose the visual object as an unstable document. This piece, entitled A Precisely Sharpened Implement, is a 10-color lithograph. Each color requires me to draw a separate plate, a printing element, process the printing element, proof a color, and eventually choose the colors I will utilize in the final printing of the edition. Lithography itself is a very labor-intensive process. Here I chose to do it 10 times over just to complete one piece. The reason for that is to create and build an intensity of color and detail within the work. This piece was part of a traveling exhibition entitled Intuitive Repetition. It was also part of a portfolio exchange with the same title. It was on exhibition at the 7th International Lithographic Symposium at the Lithographic Academy in Tidaholm, Sweden. And it's also part of the permanent collection at the Dutch Museum of Lithography in Valkenswaard, Netherlands. Printmaking is the language I employ when creating my work. I am enchanted by its tradition, processes, and application within historical and contemporary art. Whether it is the deep embossment of a finely etched copper plate or the slick commercial-like appearance of a screen print as seen here in Suburban Migration, I am provoked by process and technique to realize my aesthetic and conceptual vision. Many of the works that I create have a tactile quality to them, especially those specifically created for portfolio exchanges, whereas the viewer will physically handle each print. This provides me with an opportunity to produce work that generates a more complex sensory experience. The prints may be metallic, embossed, intricately cut, burned, shot at, flocked, or folded. As in this piece, The Story of Ohio, King Louis Devouring Bolt, the goat itself is flocked. It has a furry texture to it. A memory can certainly be triggered visually. However, the addition of touch and or smell can further enhance the viewing experience. This is something that I'm wishing to achieve in these particular prints. It was second grade, Mrs. Minnendorf's class. We were learning times tables. We used to go sit in the back of the room, put these headphones on, press play on the tape recorder, and it would repeat the times tables over and over and over again. Sometimes we didn't use a tape recorder, we used a record player. Just depended on what we were actually doing. But this whole idea of learning with the headphones, this phonics type learning, was kind of a new trend at the time. It was 1981. I took the headphones off and I placed them on the table. The next thing I know, I was smacked across the head. My mom had to come to school and talk with the principal. Supposedly, I laid down that new technology called headphones too hard on the desk. Could have damaged them, and I was to be punished for that. I wrote over and over on the chalkboard, I will not drop the headphones. I will not drop the headphones. I will not drop the headphones. This piece, entitled Think Happy Thoughts, was part of a traveling exhibition and print portfolio exchange entitled Hate Breeders, which was based off of a song by the punk rock band The Misfits. I've included the song on this slide for your reference. There's a moment in the song where Glenn Danzig says, "They bred that hate right in your bones." Well, I grew up an hour and a half from Disney. I don't think I need to say any more. Listen to the song. I think you'll get the rest. Through my work, I continue to reconstruct, distort, reveal, and obscure memory. As we move through time, our perception and relationship to objects evolve and take on new meaning. My work asks viewers to visually participate in the act of remembering, to discover personal connections to the images presented, and to ultimately consider the malleability of your own memories. Thank you, and be safe.
All